Today I'm going to show you guys my top 5 baits for pond fishing / bank fishing. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome. What's up, everybody? Thank you for clicking on the video. First thing you're gonna notice today is that we're set up inside here in the office. It is insanely hot outside here in Texas. Extremely uncomfortable to film out in the garage, even with a fan on. So I thought I would spare you guys the fan noise, the background noise, the cicadas, the trash man driving by, and all that stuff that we normally have to deal with out there in the garage. Move things inside in here to the office, set up the lights, get everything rigged up in here, and we'll do this top 5 pond / bank fishing bait breakdown from here inside in the AC. That's right, the name of the game today in this video is going to be my top 5 pond fishing / fishing from the bank baits. I'm gonna run through some options for you guys and tell you why I specifically would choose these baits. And we're gonna go over a few different scenarios, why I picked each one of these, explain to you guys when and where I would use each one of these baits. It's gonna be a little bit different from what you normally see. We don't have the tackle wall behind us, but we do have a bunch of cool, aesthetically pleasing stuff here in the office. So I think you guys will enjoy this bait breakdown. Even though we're not outside in front of the tackle wall, this is going to be a fishing video. I've got a bunch of baits set out here on the table in front of me, and I'm looking forward to breaking these baits down with you. I'll talk to you guys a little bit about the baits that I used growing up fishing ponds in North Texas, which is how I got my start bass fishing. Small bodies of water. I wasn't always on a big clear lake, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that here in this video while I show you guys my top 5 pond / bank fishing baits. But first, if this is your first time tuning in, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're on a mission trying to get that silver play button, hit 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. We are ripping our way onward to 15,000 right now, and I would love to have you guys on board. Help us color in the bar, hit that 100K, and obtain the elusive YouTube silver play button. You better do it, or Vigo's gonna be mad. He's Vigo! All right, enough of that. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you riding with me. Got me a nice cold Zevia here. Let's get off into this top 5 pond fishing / bank fishing bait breakdown. Now I'm going to show you guys my top 5 baits, but you know how I like to do it. I like to give you guys as many options as possible, and a lot of times these top 5 bait videos go into other areas and include more than just 5 baits, and I think that's what we're going to do here today. I'm going to show you the top 5, and then I'm going to go ahead and break down some honorable mentions for you guys. One thing I want to mention is that these baits are not in any specific order. I'm just showing you guys the 5 baits that I would personally gravitate towards if I was going to hit a pond, not necessarily saying that any one of these is better than the other. These are just the 5 that I would make sure to have at the ready if I was going to hit some small water. But first up in the list of my top 5 favorite pond fishing baits, I'm gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way first because it's probably obvious to a lot of you guys who have been watching my channel for any amount of time. You know I love fishing this bait. If I'm going to hit a pond, I'm definitely gonna have this one on deck. And that bait is the Zoom Salty Super Fluke. A weightless fluke style bait is an excellent option for fishing a pond, and if I'm going out there to hit the small waters, I'm definitely gonna have one of these babies at the ready. This right here is a lavender shad color, but a good option if you're fishing ponds might be something more like this, a little bit darker colored. A lot of the murkier ponds, at least here in Texas, aren't gonna have bright white shad a lot of the time. They're gonna have more of a baby bass, darker color, smaller fish that those bass will be feeding on, maybe bluegill, some type of sunfish. So if I'm gonna hit a pond and I'm gonna throw a fluke, I'm gonna have one of 2 colors ready. Just a plain white style fluke or lavender shad or something in the green pumpkin or baby bass colors. Just cover all the bases. That's all you need. Something natural, something a little more flashy. Kind of just let the fish tell you what they want. But if I'm going to hit a pond, I'm definitely throwing a weightless fluke. I'll throw the fluke weightless on a 4/0 EWG Gamakatsu light wire hook. That's my setup for the fluke. I generally throw it on 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon, and it's an insanely deadly bait. It just gets bit everywhere. You guys know I love fishing the fluke. I've actually got a couple fluke fishing videos coming up for you guys soon here on the channel from out there on the water. And since I use it so much here and we talk about the fluke so much here on the channel, I just wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way. But if I'm going to hit a pond, I'm definitely gonna have the fluke on deck, and that's just the way it is. Oh yeah. Fluke is deadly, man. Here's one more color. Check that color out. It's another bold standout. You might want to throw that into super murky water. That right there would be a good option. Sweet. Yeah, number 1 on the list, no surprise, Zoom Salty Super Fluke. But now we're gonna start getting into the other baits, some baits that you guys probably never see me throw here on the channel. Number 2 on the list is probably gonna be the first bait that I would pick up if I was going to hit a pond. This is a bait that I have dominated with out there in the small waters up in North Texas. Anytime I was going to fish a pond, This is like the first bait that I would throw every time, and a lot of the time it ended up being the only bait that I needed out of the arsenal. And I'm talking about the popper style bait. This right here, this is a Rebel Pop R. Excellent option for fishing a pond. If you want to fish small water and you want to get those top water blow ups, it is hard to beat a Pop R. The popper style bait is just a killer in the small waters. It gets them fired up. I got a couple different colors on deck here. I even have this guy. This one's got like a bullfrog pattern going on there. A little bit smaller profile. I'm not even sure what brand of bait this is right here. Rebel Pop R or something like the Splashback 70 from 6 Cents Fishing is gonna be a super deadly pond fishing option. I see a lot of guys out there fishing the small waters, lighting them up with the Splashback 70. And that is a uniquely shaped topwater popper style bait right there. Nice shad color. This is the Ghost Hot Herring Splashback 70. And that right there is gonna be one of my top recommendations. Probably the first bait that I would pick up if I was going to fish some small water. Now I wanted to include baits in this list that we're gonna apply for pond fishing as well as fishing from the bank anywhere when you had limited access to shoreline. So anytime you're limited on the water you can hit, I think these are gonna be great options for you, primarily centered around pond fishing, but these are gonna be excellent bank fishing options as well. And the first two that I've showed you are definitely the two that I would take with me if I could only take two and go fish from the bank, either in a pond or out on a lake. The Fluke and the Pop R, absolutely deadly. One of the best ways that you can fish a topwater popper style bait like I just showed you is parallel to the shoreline. Throw that thing along the bank and just slowly bloop it and blip it all the way back to you and it'll get lit up. The Fluke, you can throw that thing out there and let it sink and you can twitch it really, really slow like a dying shad deeper out into the water column, or you can work it fast up near the surface of the water with that more erratic twitching jerk bait action, which is how I tend to use it. Those two baits right there, man, those are probably the first two that I'm gonna grab. Like I said, this list is in no specific order, but the popper and the Fluke, straight deadly options. Next up on the list, number 3, is gonna be some sort of smaller profile creature bait, such as the Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Craw or the Baby Brush Hog. Those are two excellent options right there. Let me show you guys. I'm talking small creature stuff. Smaller profile, depending on the water you're fishing. If it's a pond and it's got really murky water, you're probably gonna wanna go with something a little bit more bold, like this black and blue Baby Brush Hog right here. This is an awesome bait for pond fishing. A lot of people throw the Baby Brush Hog, and that black and blue is really gonna stand out in those darker, murkier bodies of water that don't have a lot of visibility. I'll show you guys a couple more options that I have here on deck. Baby Brush Hog, Ultra Vibe Speed Craw. I also have some natural colored watermelon candy Baby Brush Hogs there. This is the Super Speed Craw, just a little bit larger profile, very similar to the Ultra Vibe. That right there is another excellent smaller profile creature bait for pond fishing or fishing from the bank. Like I said, when you have limited access to shoreline and you gotta make do with what you got. I'll show you guys a couple more interesting options right here. This right here is the Yamamoto Flappin' Hog. Check this thing out. Super interesting, smaller profile creature style bait. A lot of appendages on this thing. You got a lot of options. I would probably clip these off and just rock with it like that right there. That's gonna be an excellent bait for fishing in ponds or from the bank when you need a smaller profile creature bait. In no specific order, those are the 3 so far on the list. The Fluke, the popper style bait, and a smaller profile creature bait. I got one more creature bait to show you in here. Falls into that interesting category. Got this one sealed up over here in the Ziploc. This is for you Z-Man guys. For anybody that likes the Laztec Z-Man product. This right here, this is that little TRD craw. Throw that thing on a little finesse Ned head. Super small profile. That's gonna be a deadly pond fishing option right there. That's the smallest profile creature bait that I personally own. Super realistic, a Laztec from Z-Man. Just another small creature bait to help you get bit while you're out there pond fishing. I would say the standouts for me, and if I could only have 2, it would definitely be the Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Craw and the Baby Brush Hog. Those are the 2 I would go with. I love Zoom soft plastics. They make excellent products, but I wanted to give you guys multiple options there for that one. I had several different varieties in the boat, so I thought I would show you a few. Those are all excellent small creature bait options for pond fishing. Next up, I'm gonna show you guys another top water bait for fishing out there in the ponds. If you're hitting a pond, especially here in Texas, one abundant food source for bass that is most likely very nearby when it comes to pond fishing, the frog. That's right guys, I love throwing a frog in the ponds. Used to do it all the time back in the day. Frogs are a very common food source for bass in the ponds, and that is why I included it on this top 5 pond fishing baits. When it comes to colors, I would keep it super natural on the paint scheme with either a white or a darker green style belly. That is what I would narrow it down to if you're fishing in the ponds. This right here is the Mossback Vega Frog from 6 Cents. I also selected the baby bullfrog color to show you. This is another excellent option, really natural. This is what the frogs are gonna look like out there in those ponds. I have some other frog options here to show you as well, give you some other ideas of what you could be using if you're hitting those ponds and you wanna throw a frog. A black frog is also an awesome option, especially if you have super murky water. That's a little spro frog right there. Also got this guy, another natural yellow belly frog. Hollow body frogs I'm talking here, top water. And if the bass are smaller, you could even elect to use something like this right here. This is a super small profile frog. But for me, personally, I would keep it simple. I would throw something like that right there. That's gonna be like primo. You can fish this so many different ways. You can retrieve it fast, you can pop it, you can walk it. The Vega frog and baby bullfrog from 6th Sense, that's an excellent pond fishing option. So many frogs around the ponds. I had a pond in my backyard when I was growing up, and every night when it got dark, all you could hear were the frogs screaming and making all kinds of noise. It's a super abundant food source. Bass love feeding on those frogs, and if you're pond fishing and you want to throw something on top, maybe a little bit different from a popper, the frog is going to be an excellent option, and that is why I included it here on this list. Number 4, the frog. Hard to beat a frog in a pond. They absolutely love it. They'll go crazy. I've had some insane blow-ups on frogs. Back home, fishing ponds. Before I moved here onto this lake and started fishing the bigger water, always had a frog with me, and I loved throwing the frogs in the ponds. Let's go on and move on to number 5. My number 5 bait for pond fishing / shoreline fishing when you have limited access to the water is gonna be a smaller profile worm or stick bait. First up, the Clout 5.4 watermelon candy, 6th Sense fishing, super natural. A bait like this is just an excellent option for fishing in the ponds. Also, the Ned Fry Senko style bait, super deadly if you're fishing small water. This right here is a good leech imitation. It's a good bait fish imitation. It really matches the profile of a lot of different forage that those bass are gonna be feeding on in the ponds. And that is why I had to include a smaller profile stick bait or worm on the top 5 pond fishing baits. I'd probably throw this on a 3 or 4/0 EWG with a 1/4 ounce bullet weight. Same thing with this, or you could even throw the Ned Fry weightless. You could cut it down and throw it on a Ned head. This is an excellent option, super versatile. I also have a couple other options here to show you. That right there, green pumpkin Yum Dinger, excellent option. That is a green pumpkin Senko Yamamoto, the original. You could even go white. Another option would be the Zoom trick worm. That right there is just their regular trick worm and watermelon candy. Also have this shad style color right here. Would probably stick to the more natural green pumpkins, watermelon red, watermelon candy, but a smaller worm is an excellent option for pond fishing, and one that I had to include on my list of my top 5 pond fishing / fishing from the bank when you have limited access to shoreline bait list. But wait, there's more. That's right, guys. You know how I like to do it. I like to give you guys as many options as possible when I do these list videos, and I have several honorable mentions that I want to include here that you can't overlook when it comes to pond fishing. I'm sure some of you pond fishing guys out there are thinking, hey, why didn't you include this bait or that bait? And hopefully I'm gonna rattle off a couple of them now. So we've done our top 5, the fluke, the popar, the smaller profile creature bait, the frog, and the worm. But now we're gonna roll off into a few honorable mentions. First up in the honorable mentions category, and one bait that I did really well on the last time I was up in North Texas pond fishing is a bait that you guys see me throw here often on the channel, just like the fluke. This is my PB getter, the swim jig. That's right, man. An excellent option for covering water and getting bit in a pond is a smaller profile swim jig. This is a 1/4 ounce Divine swim jig from 6th Sense Fishing. Personally, my favorite swim jig, one that I throw practically exclusively. If I'm gonna throw a swim jig, it's gonna be a Divine swim jig. And I'm gonna have it set up with something like this right here, paddle tail swim bait, and I'm just gonna fire that thing out and cover water with it. Rolling this back to the bank is an excellent option for pond fishing. The last time I fished ponds up in North Texas with my dad, this is what I was throwing, and I caught like 4 or 5 bass out of the same little less than 1 acre pond throwing a swim jig. So had to include that in my honorable mentions category. If you're fishing the pond and none of the other stuff that I've mentioned is working, consider throwing either a shad or a bluegill colored swim jig, and I bet you'll get yourself some results. That right there is an awesome bluegill style pattern. If you don't have shad in the pond, a bluegill imitation like this right here, excellent option. Super natural, but bold enough to stand out in those murky pond waters. One of these two probably gonna get it done for you if nothing else is working out there in the ponds. Next up, in that same sort of moving bait category, absolutely have to mention for pond fishing, especially if you're trying to get on that reaction bite, the fish are not reacting to the swim jig or any of the other baits I mentioned, you might just need to get them fired up, and a chatterbait is a great way to do that. Bladed jig, covering water, moving bait, a lot of times it's something that they just haven't seen before, and a chatterbait is an excellent way to cover water in a pond. Another awesome pond fishing option. Or If you're fishing from the bank and you have limited access to shoreline, you can fire this out there and let it sink, roll it back slow along the bottom, or you can burn it back, trigger that reaction strike. Chatterbait, excellent option for pond fishing. You can see I have this one rigged up a little bit different. That's a little cross style trailer on there, a little bolder, darker colors here. This would be an excellent option for fishing in the ponds, especially if you have bluegill, crawfish in your pond. That right there is gonna be an excellent bladed jig slash chatterbait pond fishing option as well. You don't need a lot, you know, you just need one or two, cover the bases. Shad style, really natural, bold pattern, and that right there is gonna get it done. The chatterbait is an excellent pond fishing option and something that I would consider having close by if I was going to fish the small waters. There's another look at a more natural brown and green pumpkin style right there. Dude, that would just be so deadly in a pond. That thing is gonna do work. The chatterbait, definitely had to mention that one. Like I said, giving you guys a few more than just 5 options. That's how I like to do it in my top 5 list videos. I like to bring as much information and value as possible in these vids, show you guys some other options and make it a little bit more interesting for you when you're out there trying to make your selection when it comes to pond fishing. All right, so I have 2 more baits to show you guys. Speaking of blades, speaking of flash, this next bait right here is a bait that I started out fishing for bass with. I think this is the first bait that I ever caught a largemouth bass on fishing in a pond. The spinner bait. This is an excellent option. I've always done really well with the spinner bait in ponds. So consider having a spinnerbait nearby. I throw the War Eagle spinnerbaits, and that is what that is right there. It's got a silver and gold willow leaf style blade. I got a Kitech Fat Swing Impact there for the trailer. Bright shad standout pattern. It's got that chartreuse green and blue skirt with the white shad color. This right here is also another awesome option. This is the smaller profile War Eagle, little Colorado style blades on it, purple and yellow skirt, smaller Kitech 2.8 on there. That's gonna be a great option for throwing around in the ponds. There's another War Eagle that I have rigged up with a fluke. Fluke's looking a little beat up, but hey, that right there, man, is a deadly option for fishing in the ponds. And like I said, I used to wear them out with a spinnerbait. If you got really murky water, that chartreuse is hard to beat. I don't have a chartreuse one here in front of me, but a chartreuse spinnerbait or a bright colored spinnerbait in a pond with dirty water, it's an excellent option for pond fishing, and one that I always threw when I was doing that type of fishing. Like I said, giving you guys options, and I have one more bait to show you here in this video. This bait right here, we're bouncing back into that top water category, and this bait right here is an excellent option for pond fishing, one that I have totally lit them up on. I remember one time I went to a pond and I was throwing this bait and we caught, between the 3 of us, probably like 100 fish. This is gonna be an awesome option if you're fishing a bigger pond, if you got a few acres to cover, or if you're fishing from the shore on a lake. Tough to beat a buzz bait. This right here is a skirtless buzz bait, but the traditional skirted style buzz bait, chartreuse color in a pond, man, I've done some damage. So I had to include this bait on the list. Up there on top, super fun bite, just chunk and wind, burn it back to you, and it just drives those bass nuts, especially if they've never seen it before. The buzz bait is an excellent option for fishing the ponds. I got this one rigged up with a paddle tail swim bait, but if I was fishing a pond, I would probably consider throwing a traditional skirted style buzz bait. It's just an awesome option and one that I had to include here in this video. And that wraps up the list. That's all the baits that I have in front of me. That's gonna cover a lot of bases and get you guys out there catching fish in the pond. My top 5, if I could only have 5, the fluke, the pop-R, the smaller creature style bait, the frog, and a small plastic worm. One of those options is probably gonna get you bit, but if you got a little bit more room in your tackle bag, throw in a swim jig, a chatterbait, a buzz bait, a spinnerbait, you're gonna go out there and dominate one way or the other. It's gonna cover a lot of bases, and chances are one of those things is gonna get you bit. But that's gonna be all the baits that I have for you in this video. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed the bait breakdown. If you did enjoy the video, if this helped you out with your bait selection for pond/bank fishing, please consider subscribing to the channel. Help us color in the bar, hit that 100K, and obtain the elusive YouTube silver play button. Also, if you guys are in need of some nice worms for pond fishing, maybe the Ned Fry, the Clout 5.4 from 6 Cents Fishing, or if you want to pick up some of these popper style baits in some really awesome, unique color schemes, check out 6 Cents Fishing, 6centsfishing.com. Use my code JR10 at checkout, and that's going to save you 10% off of everything on the website. Excellent way to support the channel if you like what we have going on over here. Save yourself some money at the same time. If you do use my code with 6 Cents Fishing, take a little screenshot of that confirmation email that you're going to receive. Hop on over to Instagram at @TheJustinRoyal. Shoot me a a DM with that screenshot and I will give you a shout out on my story. Everybody who uses my code gets a shout out on Instagram, just a way for me to say thank you, pay it forward, give you guys a little public recognition for supporting the channel. I do appreciate you using that code. Will help us continue to do the things that we're able to do over here, keep pumping out videos for you guys. Speaking of future videos, I'm in the middle of editing an on the water fishing video right now. That'll be the next video that you guys see. I also have an unboxing coming of some really awesome hard baits that we ordered from the 6, as well as an additional on the water video coming at you live and direct and full effect really soon right here on this channel. So consider sticking around, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, ride with us, help us grow this beast. I do appreciate you all for taking time out of your day to watch the video. I hope it helped you make your selection when you go out there to hit the ponds or hit the lake from the banks. But I think that's all I got for you today. That about does it. That about wraps her on up. So I'm gonna say goodbye for now, and I'll see you on the next one.